Suzanne, I already know this is going to be amazing conversation because we've already been chatting and I've been sad that I hadn't already hit record. You are full of wisdom and life and joy, and I can't wait to have everybody experience the beauty that I have for the last few minutes. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Wendy. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you and with your listeners.
Well, they're a fabulous bunch, and I know they're going to love you. And, for the past, gosh, well, for me, the past 3 weeks, but in podcast land, that's been the last 12 or so episodes. There have been 4 or 5 women that are older than me that are up to such beautiful, phenomenal things in the world. I can't get enough of what you all have to say. I want to be in your orbit, in your energy. And it reminded me when I might have been 25 years old. I grew up in church. And at this point in my life, I was in a church where my dad was the pastor and I was leading a Bible study. And I don't know, I guess you're popular when your dad is the boss of the place. So a lot of people wanted to be in my Bible study, like that was going to be anything more special. But I made a rule that you had to be 65 years old to be in my Bible study because knew that I only knew what I knew. And I wanted to know more, and I wanted the wisdom and the depth and the humor and this is not really in context to a Bible study setting, but the Christian version of not giving any F's. Like this, these were the women I wanted to hang out with. And I love that really has always been who I want to talk to. Like, I want to
Yeah.
talk to the 5-year-olds and I want to talk to the 85-year-olds and everyone in the middle. That's fun, but I think the juice is on each of those ends. So
We
thank
have
you.
we have
Yeah,
something in common
tell me.
because there isn't a 5-year-old in the country that doesn't see me and start to talk.
Yeah.
I did my doctoral studies on children's play and learning, and
Mm.
I did an ethnographic study where I was a play partner for a full year in a kindergarten class. And I was so successful at them not seeing me as a teacher that
Right.
one day when I took over from the classroom teacher who had been called out on a family emergency, they refused to stop their playtime because I wasn't the teacher. And as one little kid piped up and said, and you're not even the mother. So 5-year-old, I love younger children. And, I give a whole new meaning to the term late bloomer because at 87, I could never have imagined I'd be doing what I'm doing. I mean, it just, some mornings I wake up and I think, am I in some kind of a, you know, altered universe? But it's possible. And that's the theme of my book. People often describe my book as such a hopeful book. And that's what I want because I can tell you, I don't know how old you are, but I can tell
I
you,
am 58 at the time
well,
of
I will
this
tell you,
airing.
when I turned 60, I thought it was over. I could barely get out of a chair.
Oh,
I had to take early retirement. I thought, and everything. My husband and I were boaters, and we had bought a beautiful trawler, actually in Buffalo area, no, in Clayton, and we thought, okay, we were going to take the intercoastal waterway, the
yeah.
5,000-mile loop, and there I was. I couldn't get out of a chair, and I was on over 200 units of insulin a day.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so that's what started my journey of healing, which is what my book is about. And so it's never too late is not just a phrase for me, it's my life.
Oh my gosh, you're doing it so beautifully. How did you, I know everyone can read the book, but let's talk about why they should go buy it.
Okay.
How did you, I understand feeling like you don't want the circumstances that you are witnessing to be your circumstances, and to know that you want something better, healthier, more vibrant, more dreamy, but to want it, very, very important piece of
Yes,
the work. But how do you get out of the chair to
I
get
know.
toward what you want?
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest piece in all of the journey of healing is the mind.
Absolutely.
And it absolutely is. And people are foolish if they don't believe that. And I'm of a generation where what the doctor said was next only to God. I took all these, I was on prednisone for years.
Oh
And
my gosh,
and
that's a
be,
terrible situation.
and begging, that's why it ruined my whole endocrine system. But that's why I took early retirement. I went to all these doctors. I was getting worse and worse. I had such brain fog after a couple of years from controlling diabetes with diet and exercise. I now was taking 200 units and 6 needles a day. I had an endocrinologist who said, well, you're getting older, that famous line, and
Yeah.
nothing could be done except take more insulin. And so I had such brain fog between the diabetes and the prednisone. The prednisone was for a chronic inflammation issue that I
Mm,
still have, by the way. It
okay.
never did anything except mask some symptoms for a
Oh,
while. And then the specialists, and I mean, I live very close to Toronto. We have some of the best hospitals in the world,
okay.
Sunnybrook Hospital and the endocrinologists there. And they just kept telling me I couldn't go off it or I would die.
Mm.
And I said to my husband one day, well, maybe I will, but I can't live like this. I couldn't write, I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything. And so I was reduced to going to the library and grocery shopping from a
Oh my
person
word.
who ran in every direction at once and was very successful in my career. So I didn't intend to talk about this today.
That's okay. Hey, that everybody says that. That's okay. I'm eager to hear.
But anyway, so how did I get out of the chair? So, I mean, it was willpower. There's no question. Nobody can do it for you. And I believe that about any of these issues to do with health. If you don't make up your mind to take ownership for yourself, you can forget it. If you want to sit on the couch and eat your chips and whatever, that's your privilege. And I don't condemn people for that. Not everybody is blessed with the kind of persistence and fortitude that I have. And I'll tell you a very interesting thing about that. And I hope that for your listeners, there will be people out there who will relate to this. I never saw myself as a strong person.
Mm.
I never did until very few years ago. And when I look back at it, like you say, it is quite amazing. But
Yeah.
I'm not an extraordinary person. I'm an ordinary woman who had all family responsibilities and had a busy job and things. So, but what happened was that once I decided, I had a wonderful GP. She was just amazing. But she used to say to me, I'm a science trained doctor, Suzanne.
Mm.
So when I started looking into the alternatives, I never gave up on mainstream medicine. And I still have a couple of wonderful doctors,
Okay.
especially for the diabetes. I mean, I say we should use the best that modern medicine gives us. And diabetes is a perfect example of that because my father had diabetes. And when you think of the hypodermic sized needles they used to have and peeing on a stick to tell you what your blood sugar is, I mean, it was brutal.
Right.
Um, so I never thought that, but I knew there had to be something else. And it was interesting because I'd always been very holistic in my thinking. And when I did my doctoral studies on play, that was one of the things that came out was how I was able to look at play as the lessons that no one can teach children
Yes.
and how that is very holistic. It comes from everything that they do. So I went back to that and I started with massage because I knew some people who did it and it was really physically motivated.
Okay.
I wasn't thinking of spirituality at all at that time. I was just
Right.
thinking of trying to get myself to be able to move and do some of the things that I wanted to do.
Yes.
And then in the midst of that, my husband died very suddenly, sick one day and gone. And it never did we, because he looked after me.
Right.
And then and then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen if? And
Yeah.
all the what happens if happened within 6 months. I had responsibility for his mother, who had serious mental illness, not Alzheimer's, but had had serious mental illness all her life. I had a massive um, flood in my home. It
Oh,
was just one thing after another. But I started doing things to help myself. And that is the crucial, the self care and then the self understanding. Those two things are absolutely crucial. And that's what now, reason I wrote my book was because it took me forever, many years, to be able to work through all this and come up with an understanding of why it worked. I did a lot of
sure.
reading and research and talking. I had conversations with hundreds of people from all walks of life and all nationalities and men and women about their experiences. And so the two pieces of health and aging, both were together. And that's been a problem for me, and it is with my book because it was hard to know how to frame the title in a way that captured both.
Right.
My book is titled Healing from the Inside, Living Fully as You Age. And it's that whole idea of when we do heal from past things, both physical, mental, and dare I say spiritual,
The
that
root cause of
then
all of our physical
exactly.
dis-ease.
And I believe that. I
Yeah.
truly believe that is where it lies. And treatment has to then not just be physical as it is in Western medicine, but it has to have some way of going much deeper. So that's how I got out of the chair. And I started very slowly and very skeptical. The first time I went to see an energy healing doctor, he was a chiropractor and he practiced something called network spinal analysis.
Okay.
Epstein, what, I'm sorry, I forget his first name. Um, not the famous Epstein,
Right.
not that famous Epstein, another famous Epstein. Um, they do something called network spinal analysis, which is an energy healing treatment, and it comes out of chiropractic
Okay.
work. So that was very interesting. And when I went the first time, I thought, oh my gosh, what am I getting into, right? Uh, so, uh, uh,
With the witch doctor and
well, yeah, maybe a little voodoo mixed in. I loved it. And I met these amazing, I'm going to say women, because they were all women in that practice at that
perfect.
time, although it wasn't supposed to be that. And their stories encouraged me. And that was my beginnings. And I've gone then, I've really experimented with different things. I love yoga. I don't do yoga. I've never been able to do yoga when I was skinny and whatever because I just can't do it very well. But I do some chair yoga.
Okay.
Now, but Reiki and all of the different things. So that's why I decided, when pandemic came,
Right.
I was going to just do a blog because I couldn't face, I've written books before, but they were in education.
Okay.
And here's me, you know, with a
Going off the deep end.
yes, that's right. And that's again something I want your women listeners to hear is don't be afraid to try,
Right.
reinvent yourself.
Yes.
There's lots of selves to be brought to the fore, as it were. So I started
Right.
this and but I felt that if I could take all that I had learned from all and I met some wonderful people along the way, dietitians, chiropractors, massage therapists, you know, garden variety women like myself who were, you know, pushing the boundaries of what was expected for health and aging. And out of that came my book.
Mm.
And when the first reviews that I sent out, there was one that came back that was quite critical because I did not do any quantitative analysis. And I was prepared for that because when I did my study for my doctorate at University of Toronto, there wasn't a professor there who could help me do a qualitative study. So
Okay.
I had fought that battle years and
Right.
years ago, and I don't apologize. This is a layperson's eye view of what it means to try to heal in a system that is so limited.
Right. And did it work?
Of course,
Yes.
at
So
87, I went to Italy this summer.
I love so who cares what that person thinks? It's so amazing. Obviously, when we say it out loud and we are talking about our experience, which is positive and expansive in the way we think and in the way we acted and in the growth edges that we came against and moved through, and we created new neural pathways and new thoughts and belief systems, and all of these things are so great. And then one review comes back from someone we know, or sometimes someone we don't know, who says that's a bunch of woo woo and it doesn't work and whatever. Like that person who is miserable and sick, full of dis-ease, stuck in their own limiting story, and actually cannot tolerate this working for you because it requires them to rethink everything that they built their foundation on, and that is too painful. So instead, they're just going to lash out at you.
Well, it's interesting because one of the things that I read before I joined this podcast was you asked the question,
How are you saying yes to
yes, to
yourself in this
yourself.
season?
Yes, and I
It's
thought,
coming.
and I
Please
will,
answer it.
and I will tell you that this point talks to it because it took me years, and it was years to break down those old, what we would call at the university, the paradigms, the old sets of beliefs that hold us in our life the way. And give us a stability in our life because this is what we think and this is what's going to happen and so on. And it took a long, long time. And I came to it with a lot of appreciation and knowledge about holistic concepts. So I know it does. But if people take my book, and I have with every chapter a taking action.
Mm,
And because what I found when I started out, now you have to imagine this is 20 years ago.
right.
Um, I found a lot of people talking about healing, but they would tend to take one piece of the pie. And
Yeah.
I've again, as a holistic thinker, I'm always looking for the big picture. Always, always. Now that's fine if I change my diet. if I change my exercise, if I change my, if I start meditating. But what happens? How do they fit together? How do all of those things come together in quote unquote a package that I could make it accessible to others? And that's what my book is. So it starts with understanding, and that, I mean, again, it starts in the mind. And it's these understandings of what I call reimagining health, reimagining aging. And I
Right.
do a lot. I've just done some really interesting articles on that. And I've done some podcasts. I mean, you look at the amount of money we have in beauty products so that we don't look old. And so much of the healing stuff on health is because we don't want to be active. We don't want to walk like an old person. We don't want to. It's not about healing yourself and becoming the person you can be and should be and were meant to be.
Right.
It's about making you look better.
Right.
And that's only one little part of the picture. And but when you ask what I do to for
How you are
myself,
saying yes
celebrate
to
myself,
yourself. How are you
then
saying yes to yourself in this
it
season?
it comes back to that whole point about not giving in to, not doing stuff for what somebody else thinks, but getting to a point where you are comfortable enough. I say this someplace in my book, where you can look in the mirror and say, I am beautiful. And I earned every one of these wrinkles I have, thank you.
For
And,
sure.
this insolent tummy that I have that I hate, but I know I don't hate it. I don't hate my body at all, but coming to appreciate for ourselves. And that's been something that I have fought my whole life. I was caught up, and again, I tell the story in my book. I don't want to go into it now, but um, in not believing that I was good enough for anything. No
Mm,
matter what successes I had, it never brought me that deep peace. And that's where I really challenge again the notion of fulfillment, what it means.
mm,
And I have one blog that I wrote last summer called Ditch the Bucket List, where I talk about experiences and things you have. I've always wanted to own blah, blah, blah.
right.
You can have that. You can go on a trip every 6 months. You can do it, and they're great. And they, if you can afford it and you have the health, I did a lot of traveling after my husband died, but they are not what brings fulfillment. Fulfillment is when we come to terms with our deepest needs, and that's where spirituality comes. I don't write about spirituality in the sense of religion. I write about it as an organic piece of every human on the planet. I
Yeah.
don't know if you know the work of Carolyn Mace.
I don't.
No, she's a wonderful woman. She wrote the most beautiful um, testimonial for my book.
Okay.
Her last name is spelled Myss, but it's
Okay.
pronounced Mace, Carolyn. Look her up. I think you'd
I'm
be
going
interested.
to.
She also has a background in religion, but has, you know, evolved her thinking, if you want to call it that, as have
That's what
I.
I will call it.
As have I. So, um, I don't know if that's helpful for your listeners, but
Oh,
I
sweet
think,
Suzanne, everything you have to say is really beautiful and it is helpful. I think, one thing in just the point about evolving our beliefs and evolving our thoughts about things, it's not saying I used to believe this, but now I know that that was wrong and that
yeah,
was bad and everyone else that believes it is dumb. It's not
no,
that. It
no,
was beautiful and it was helpful and it was stabilizing and foundational and it got me as far as I could go with it. And then it was time for me personally to find something more expansive that wasn't You referred to this earlier in saying that you came from a generation where what the doctor said, it was next to God. And my mom has the same philosophy of just that's just how she grew up. That's her conditioning. The first time that she received a breast cancer diagnosis, she had it twice, survived both times. Um, I said, well, we need to get a second opinion. And I remember her saying, second opinion, that's a slap in the face to the doctor. Like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, and I don't even think when she said that out loud, I think she realized, oh, no, that I don't actually believe that. But these thought systems are running unchecked in our mind, and it's good. It's good to come up with new thoughts. It's good to expand our belief system. It's good to become more inclusive. It's good to be growing and to not require everybody else who was in the room that used to bring you joy to either come with you to a new room or sign off on it's okay for you to leave. This is unconditional alignment. This is th me being called by my inner wisdom to the next right step for me that, yes, impacts other people. And my intention is for that impact to be positive. But I don't need anybody else to sign off on what is working for me. And I don't want to argue with anybody that is doing something that's working for them just because it's different than what's working for me.
That's a very important part of the underpinnings for my book, and
Sure.
I really appreciate you saying that. I think that I mean, when people talk about my book as bringing hope, it's two things. It's as you said, changing our thinking doesn't mean it was wrong. It means it's not right for now.
Right.
And the other big part, and I want to touch on this because I think it's central, is building on your strengths. When I started this, everything would be talking about releasing the old wounds and doing this and that. And I would read those things and I would agree with them, but I didn't know what it meant. And I
Mm,
didn't know how on earth I was going to go about doing that.
sure.
And so I have done that, and it takes the time and patience. But what I say to people, and I do it, I actually I'm working on two books, two, like not workbooks, but kind of like a workbook to accompany my book to help people take this journey. And one of them is on, self-understanding, the very first one.
Mhm.
And that one really targets the physical, but mainly the thinking. How do
Right.
you begin to change your thinking? So there are in each of it, there will be a reflection, a quote from the book or something like that. Then there's some things to do. So
Sure.
it's expanding the taking action that's at the
Right.
end of every chapter. And the second one is the whole business of this organic spirituality that I talk about, and how do we wake up or rediscover, or whatever the word is, that part of ourselves that's been left out. When I started doing this, there was almost, I couldn't find very many people who mentioned spirit. Mind and body was really big.
Yeah.
And we were understanding that, and that's easy. I mean, we know how our mind affects our body. If we're feeling happy, boy, our walk is completely different than if we've got a load on top of our head and we think today's the last day, right?
Right.
So we understand that body mind, but that's not all of it.
Right.
So it's how do we get inside? And that's what I call my transformational journal, and I love it. I started off with what was very popular, the transformational journal. And again, I still think that is a wonderful starting place, but that's not going to bring you fulfillment.
Right.
It isn't. It'll help you to change your mind, though. So,
Right. And
yeah,
to find resonance and alignment with what would be fulfilling,
yes,
right? So it
yeah,
helps you're exercising your knower,
yeah.
and you can practice it in easy ways. You know what, everything that you're talking about in creating these new thought systems, and what I'm saying about alignment, is that's what saying yes to yourself is. And you can't say yes to yourself if you don't know what you want.
And
And
if you don't know who you are,
exactly,
that
you
that
don't know what
again,
you want if you don't know who you are or who you are becoming. And
yeah.
so it takes time, it takes space, it takes a decision. Like you said, you decided. And I believe that being ready isn't a feeling, being ready is a decision.
Yeah. I mean, you can sit and wait forever and never make any changes, but I think comes a time. Now, I do think, like, if everything's going fine, we're not likely to get to start off on this, but it's when things and it happens to everyone in
Yeah.
different ways. That's why there's no recipe for this, but there's a lot of ways we can support our body's ability to heal. So I think that in that business of changing the mind, of reshaping the mind, the transformational journal, I talk of that as writing for understanding, not for
Mm,
communication. And I
correct.
think people, that's very much part of my undergraduates. My master's studies were in psycholinguistics. I was always fascinated how children began to learn to read and write, and it was in New England that there was a huge, huge movement. Donald Graves was the one who started it. I think maybe in Vermont he was. I forget now, but I followed the work. There was a little whole group of them who worked on that stuff through the 60s and 70s and 80s. I loved it. And so I brought a lot of understanding about the writing process and writing for understanding. And if people will just give it a chance,
Yes.
it guides you. It guides you. I started with
Sure.
thinking about what was good in my life today, what did I appreciate, and then I went to a video one night. I went to a presentation by one of my network spinal analysis doctors. He used to do a few lectures and things, and he was talking about birth and the effects on who we become through in vitro and into early days of life. And that was a change. I came home that night and I sat down with my journal and I started to write about my coming into the world.
Mm,
And that was the first time I ever thought about how strong I am because 87 years ago, I wasn't even 4 pounds when I was born. And
wow.
you were not supposed to live. And I thought
Right.
and they always laughed, my aunts, about me when I was born because I was so little and so skinny, this little scrap of humanity, and that I just was determined to stay. And I looked at other times in my life when I made some very difficult decisions. And so the journal was the beginning for me of going to understand who I really am.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. Can you please share what would be a couple of journal prompts that someone could use to start this process?
Um, I could, yes, but in, okay. I think to begin to look, one of the first things I do is in my this little book that I'm writing to accompany my other book. Um, I talk about thinking about yourself. When are you at your best?
Hmm.
What is it you really do well?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. Start with thinking about your best self.
Right.
And then you'll move on to, oh yeah, but look at I do this. And of course you do that. And you do change those things. But don't
Sure.
start there. I say, we wouldn't get very far driving if we were looking in a rearview mirror all the time.
100%. Or at the floorboard because we're so
Yeah,
concerned with what is right now.
yeah.
We want to look at where we're going.
Now that what I would suggest if people are interested, now in my blogs, they're all things that support this journey of healing. And if people are interested, if they go to my website, they're there. And also I have a wonderful young man. When we talk about our blessings, I have a wonderful young man. He's in his early 40s, who is a digital marketer.
Oh,
Never marketed a book before, but he's learning and he's very patient with this old woman, extremely patient. I love him. I tell him if I had a son, it would be him. Um,
oh, is
but
that PJ?
no, PJ
Okay.
is no, PJ's another person. This is a chap
Because
who's right here in Toronto with me.
oh, good. I love PJ too.
Oh, I think so. I
He's
have
brought
never
me
met
some
PJ.
he's brought me some fabulous women to talk to. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so if they go there, what he's done is put the podcast when this one comes out, you they will let me know, and we will get the link, and it will go onto my website. I have a
Perfect.
whole section, and also I've done about 12 articles as well as my blogs. And those articles are all being included. And there's one other thing, and I know we're almost out of time.
You don't worry about the clock.
I
That's my job.
I had a very close friend from a way back in 1971 we met. And we were very close for a few years, and then we went different directions. And, as young women do, we get married and we go take jobs here and there. When I moved to where I am now, I'm in a condo. It's not a seniors condo, but there's many seniors here. I discovered that she lived here.
No.
So we hooked up again. Well, a year ago at Christmas, she told me that she had just been told that her colon cancer, had returned,
Oh,
and she had only a matter of months to live. That was a year ago, this past Christmas. So, we talk about the mind. She is the classic example. She passed away about a month ago.
hmm.
But in October, I was visiting her, and I had asked her last August. We would have these conversations like you and I are, and we
Sure.
would talk about life and about how, because neither one of us have had a particularly easy life.
Mhm.
We've had success, but it's been, we've had our issues. And she's had to deal with this cancer and stuff. So I asked her, could I do a video? And she said no. She didn't feel comfortable, and I respected that. Disappointed. So
Sure.
in October, I'm sitting at her kitchen table, and we were having this wonderful talk. And I asked her again, and she said, I can, Susanne, and I will. So I just handed my phone to her sister, who is her caregiver, and we recorded a conversation. Well, it was so
Oh,
beautiful. I had a professional videographer put it together for me, and it is on my website. And
oh,
it's called The
gorgeous.
Final Journey. And what she talks about there is, what she learned through it, what she needed, what the role of her sister. And it is a beautiful video. So again, it's on there. It's under conversations because one of the things I'd like to do is a little series called Conversations with Susanne and interview different. I have several different people I'd love to have talks with about different things, but that one just happened to be death, and people don't usually talk about their dying.
Right.
And she a week before she died, we had a 3/4 of an hour conversation, and she was as bright. We laughed, we joked, and she was in such pain. But
Mm.
what I'm going to do is a short one with her sister in
Oh,
the next
beautiful.
few weeks as a follow-up.
Oh,
I want people to hear her last day. It is so beautiful.
oh,
And then also I will ask her to talk about as the caregiver,
right.
what did she learn?
Oh my gosh, Suzanne, that is so
So
beautiful.
those things are all on my website
Yes,
and
please tell everybody what the website is.
very simple. I spell my name Suzanne like this, Susanne, and then my last name is Eden, Eden. So it's Susanne, Eden. There's two E's in the middle. Dot
Perfect.
com. Dot com.
All
And,
right.
and they can get the blogs. The newsletters are not there. Those are ones we just send to people. If you sign up for them, you can get them.
Okay.
Um, the newsletters are kind of fun. They're short, and we give any other information. And I do recipes from what I call my forever diet. So,
Perfect.
and they are all anti-inflammatory. That because and diabetic for diabetics. So
Oh,
those were my two health issues that I was addressing through diet, and
right.
so I have that.
Oh, well, we will link that down in the show notes. I have loved this conversation, Suzanne. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for being wonderful, you, and I cannot wait to play again.
I hope so, and I would love to meet you sometime.
Fantastic. That's my favorite.